Okay,
Different setup.
we can get kicked off.
All right, it's 7:01 and I'll call the meeting to order. First thing we'll do is take a roll. Andrew Eloquin, I think, is on his way. Okay, Chris Kovac, I am here. David Liu. Present. Thank you. Sorry, new people, we just say present or here or something. Tim, Nicholas and Tim are both excused. Katie's excused. Brenda Spears.
Here.
And Marlene.
Here.
Ryan Olson. Here. And then new members, Paul Adair. Here. Mary, I want to say Mari, sorry, Mary Stevens.
Here.
And Martha Gintner. Perfect. Okay, and new members, you wouldn't know to do this, so I wouldn't worry about this part, but did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from last meeting? Any corrections or objections?
Nope.
With that, I will approve the minutes from last week. And then now Santi's gonna lead us into a bit of introductions for new people.
So welcome to our new members. We have 3 new alternate members. We're so excited to have you here. We just wanted to do a couple of introductions around the table. So we'll start with sort of name for our regular board members that have been here, maybe how long you've been on the board. For our new members, maybe how long you've lived in Issaquah. And then as the icebreaker, your favorite national park. And maybe why, if there's like a fun story there, but keeping it short. And I can kick us off. I'm Santi Copeland. I'm the Department Operations Specialist for the Parks and Community Services Department. I have been the staff liaison for the park board for a year and a half, we'll say.
Coming on 2.
And I've lived in Issaquah for about 3 years. And my favorite national park right now, I will say, is Bryce Canyon. We just went last year. It's so cool. I've never seen anything like it. Super fun. So with that, I'll pass it down the way.
Hey, welcome. So excited you're here. Jeff Watling, Parks and Community Services Director here with the City of Issaquah. I've been in this role and with the city since fall of 2016. So 7+ years. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Favorite national park, have been to quite a few. Would love to say Zion, but I grew up in South King County, not Rainier National Park, but one, just the park itself, but that mountain means something to me. You get close to that mountain and it just like, I feel it. So not Rainier, local.
I'm Chris Kovac. I've been on the board 6 years, something like that. Maybe it grows a year every few months when I'm playing that. I've been the chair for a year and I've lived in Issaquah for 24 years. My favorite national park is the Olympic National Park, whatever it is out on the coast.
Yeah, great.
Hi, I'm Marlene Waxy. I have been on the park board, I think, since 2017 or 18. I think, and I'm not exactly sure. I have done some research, but I was alternate member first, and then have just started my second term and as a kind of a full member. So that sounds about right. I joined the park board because I was brand new to Issaquah and was looking to meet people and get more involved. Let's see, I like the Olympic, and specifically, I really love the whole rainforest. When I grew up in Minnesota, but I had family who lived in Port Angeles. I just remember that being so magical as a kid. Anything else I'm supposed to tell?
That's what I'll do.
I'm David Liu. I've been on the board since coming up on my second full year, so back in 2022 as well. Been in Issaquah since 2017, summer 2017. Have a family here, it's great. And I guess favorite national park would be originally from the East Coast, so Arcadia National Park in Maine.
Nice.
It's very old school, but I like it. And special place because that's kind of the first trip I took with my now wife. So yes.
Is that on the coast?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
around the coast again.
Right, Martha Gintner, and I have lived in Issaquah for a very long time. One of, we recently retired, my husband and I, and so we have just been going out to national parks. In fact, we just got back from Utah and saw all the Mighty Five, but since Jody took it, I won't say Bryce, but we did go last year to Grand Teton, and that was just an amazing. And the reason why I like it is I'm obsessed with bison. And we saw a live bison go across the road, and they're just such amazing animals. And it just, I don't know, it just seeing that amount of just, wild animal just right there, it just really moved me. So that's why, yeah.
You're obsessed people.
I was obsessed a little bit, but really it went even higher. And I thought, yeah, pretty cool. The video is even still on my phone.
I'm Mary Stevens, and I live actually in Sammamish, but I've worked in Issaquah for the last 11 years. And I'm a huge piece of this community. I love it. And my favorite national park is probably Joshua Tree. Just different. It's different than than up here. It's not green at all. But I've got everything there.
I'm Paul Adair. I think Marlene from just recently that I've just moved here. I moved here 6 months ago and really fell in love with it and joined the board because I really wanted to contribute and be a part of the community. For favorite park, I'm not 100% sure if it's a national park. It's a random one, but it's actually White Sands Park in New Mexico that I have a personal attachment to, and that my family had a cabin near there. And so I would go there a bunch as a kid, and it's such like kind of an almost alien place when you're out there, just this pure white sand all around. And just spent a lot of time there, and so that's one that I have like a personal.
Cool. I'm Brenda Spears, and this is my second year. My first year I was an alternate. Now it's my first year as a full-blown board member. And my favorite park is Glacier, and that was because when I was young and my husband and I were younger, my daughter was young, we would hike Glacier constantly. And because my daughter was young and very spoiled, we carried her. And we got known for that, and everybody, and so my thing was, she's not heavy, she's my daughter.
Nice.
Ryan Olson, second year. I was alternate last year, full board member this year. I don't have a ton of national park, history, but for every single year for like the first 18 years of my life with the Yellowstone. And so that is probably one of my favorite parks. And then when I started riding motorcycles, it was the first park I ever took a full motorcycle trip here and all the way down there. So that was
Amazing park. Yeah.
My name is Julie Casada. I'm a senior park planner. I started about 6 months ago in this position. Say my favorite park, similarly, like I'm kind of like, is it a national park? Is it a national forest? Is Kings Canyon, Sequoia, basically the High Sierras.
Hi, everybody. I'm Robin Spear, Park Planning and Development Manager. And like Julie, I'm relatively new. I've been here since last September. So very exciting 6 months, 7 months, 8 months so far. My favorite national park has to be like Brenda, Glacier National Park. I grew up in the Flathead Valley, so that was kind of our playground, and used to be able to get up and get in there in less than 45 minutes. So but now it's a little more challenging, but yeah, beautiful park, beautiful area. It feels like home.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks for playing along. Got some new
Welcome.
parts to put to the list, and yeah, welcome.
I think so. Our next order of business is public comments, and it seems like we have a few people to contribute.
So for public comment, audience comment, we've got a spot up here at the table. If you want to come up, you have 5 minutes to address the board. And yeah.
Perfect. I have some stuff to pass out, so it came slightly. I know. Good hold on. So, here, I didn't really have meetings because I had a share. I have my own placard too. Very official.
Yeah. Welcome to 5 minutes.
Okay. Hello, board members, chair, Parks and Recs. My name is Michael Wong. I've been living here in Issaquah, proud to call it my home for the past 7 years. My wife and I are raising 2 young kids here at the foot of Squawk Mountain, just right behind here. I'm neighbors with Marlene, so she knows me. We're literally stone throw away from one another. I know you were here. A bit about myself. During the working hours, I'm a development manager at Vulcan Real Estate, so I focus on building, Class A office projects in Bellevue and Seattle. But in my off hours, though, I enjoy coaching. I'm coaching Little League. I actually left my daughter's last game a little early just to be here for this comment, but she'll forgive me later or forget it. But I'm also a archery enthusiast, and I'm currently certifying right now as a level 2 junior Olympic archery instructor. I'm here before you today to seek your support in including an enclosed outdoor archery range here in the back corner of Tibbetts Creek Park. As Rob and Jeff will probably share with you here, they performed some public outreach to see what the community wanted in our park. They had this really nifty map out there. And the results are in the first page of that packet I've kind of passed out. A junior Olympic archery range smashed it. I mean, that was more than double of anything else that was actually on there. It's something the community really wants. And it's and probably the first question going in your head is like, Michael, I mean, isn't this kind of dangerous? I mean, you're putting an archery range in the back over here. Well, I'm a real estate developer. Design and placement are the first things that come into my mind whenever I think about doing a development project. And safety is also top of mind for me as well, because I live right behind this project. I want to make sure it's something that is bulletproof safe, that nothing can get out of. So for the same reason, we put fencing around a baseball field, and we don't put kids' playgrounds at the outfield for safety. Same reason why you build archery ranges with barriers and backstops to prevent arrows from escaping the enclosure. So the design that I've contemplated in there that's in your packet is an actual enclosure that was built in Colorado Springs and Eden Prairie, which is a little suburb off of Minneapolis in Minnesota. It provides an outdoor backstop that uses simple baffle, so there's literally no way you can shoot an arrow out of this enclosure. But however, if you happen to have mutant powers and you could bend arrows midair, or you equip your arrows with depleted uranium pits or something, there is a 60-foot hill right behind it that will stop anything, and 120-foot trees that will undoubtedly stop the kinetic force of a single arrow. This exact enclosure has been built and tested for 20 years without a single incident. I talked with Keith Bardos, which is the supervisor at Eden Prairie, and he confirmed he's there from the beginning. Not a single incident has happened where an arrow has escaped the enclosure. So if the enclosure looks reasonable, what about accidents, right? If you're a skeptic like me, you probably need stats and facts from legitimate sources. And I pulled my stats not from the QAnon blog. I got this from the NIH, right? Our Department of Health and the NEISS, which is the National Electronic Injury Surveillance System. It's very long, but it's what insurance companies use to justify premiums, cost premiums for risk. Well, happy to say, unquestionably, archery is actually one of the safest things on that list. There are no fatalities from archery ranges that have been found, and no one has actually been shot from an arrow at a public archery range. It's a little surprising, but I ask Copilot, ask Google, ask ChatGPT. You cannot find. I looked at the medical journal. I cannot find a single thing on it. The characterization of the injuries are from people who pull it, don't wear gloves, string slaps their arm, or they lacerate their fingers because they're pulling a string that need a practice glove for. So that's most of the pain there. The highest risk of injury for going to hospital is all the sport courts we currently have there: baseball, soccer, tennis, skateboarding court, right? Those are all the highest chances of injury. The insurance industry rates archery in the same level as badminton, bowling, and ping pong. So it's as dangerous as those sports. It's safer than golf, guys. So you can check all my facts. Everything is sourced in there. Issaquah wouldn't be the first to do this. I'm not an early adopter. I'm not even a second adopter. We wouldn't be the first ones to do this. We'd be the third to be able to do this here in the country. But there are other counties that are even less risk averse. And if you go to downtown Portland, Washington Park has an open, non-enclosed archery range that's there that has not had an incident either. Golden Gate Park in the heart of San Francisco, in the Sunset neighborhood, also has a range there without incident. Oahu has 3 ranges out over there. I mean, so we would not be the first to do this. What does this cost? So you're probably wondering, like, okay, this looks good and well, but what is this? Let's talk cheddar, right? Well, back in Minnesota in 2004, it cost $20,000. So I know lots happened between there. Inflation has happened. So let's add. Let's inflate that for today's dollars. That's $33,000. That's the cost of an Outback with a modest trim package. But let's add some Pacific Northwest skepticism and premium to it. Let's raise that to $50,000. Okay, Price is Right. Well, I don't mean to sound like an info commercial, but that we have a 50% coupon here. So the Washington State, I know if you order now, right? The Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office offers a 50% match. So we could take that it's matched specifically for archery range construction. And I've shared this with Jeff and Robin already. So this thing comes down from 50, if I'm doing my math right, down to 25. That's the cost of a Kia Forte. I think we could probably do that for the park if we can afford a skateboarding park area as well. So applications open on August 7th and are due on Halloween. So why do this? Design is proven, tested over 20 years. Target archery is statistically safe for multiple studies. It's not expensive. We have a 50% coupon. And the location that I'm suggesting here at the back corner of Tibbetts Creek Park is underutilized. The terrain is perfect. Community outreach clearly wants it, but I'll share one last thought. I was looking at prior minutes and I noticed that one of the objectives of the board is to appeal to a broader demographic in our city. Archery, like golf, but safer than golf, is something you practice into your golden years. People in wheelchairs or with disabilities who otherwise can't play field sports, which I have a cousin who cannot, go running down a baseball field, actually practices archery. And it's one of the few sports he can actually do solo without having to get a whole team to come do it with him. And also, archery is one of the top sports in Asia. You'll probably see this in the Paris Olympics here in the next few months. But Asians make up 27% of Issaquah. I think it's evident by the number of offerings we have of dumplings and noodles at our local Costco here. But it's also something that's also very culturally prevalent in a lot of Asian cultures. And I've heard the space is limited in Issaquah Park system, but this would take up a fraction of the space there. This is 1/3 of an acre. That's 1/8 of a normal baseball field that we have here in the park. I measured it out. I brought my surveyor's rangefinder you guys were talking about. I measured it out. So it would take 1/3 of an acre. So, and it's also something that you can use 12 months out of the year. You can practice in the drizzle and the rain. Well, most of these parks sit empty during during our armpit months of the year is what I call it. So, or it's super rainy, drab. So this is something you can practice from dawn to dusk. So, so that's why I think for all those reasons, we should include this in our parks plan, because I think you guys are deciding upon that in the next few months. And I'm happy to lend any of my resources. I have access to some of the top landscape architects here in town that are surprisingly, at Happy Hour found out they're also archers too. I would be happy to volunteer some of their time and effort to help establish this in our community here. So that's all I got. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think it's just public comment, so we'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Yes, we had archery in my middle school. So it's not dangerous. Like we used to, in Minnesota, people like to do archery there, but like we had it as a middle school, like thing in gym. Which is not great.
Well, I'll leave you guys with this.
Sounds better than square dancing.
Actual blueprint plan. We don't spend money on this. So this is the actual blueprint plans that we could use. So I love the complicated first year construction magic and buildings. So, but I have to head back to the Little League. So I don't think
Oh,
you're
yes.
Any other public comment? No, I don't see anyone online. Those are our consultants for the presentation later. So I don't think we have other public comment.
Okay, with that, we go to regular business.
Okay.
It seems like someone else should handle this part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
regular business.
Yeah.
Our first item on the agenda is to elect our park board chair and vice chair for this coming year. So thank you, new members, our alternate members. You all get to act as regular members tonight. Congratulations, because we have 3 regular members that aren't here and we're taking action. You all will be voting in tonight's action here. And so for chair and vice chair, I will first call for nominations for the chair position. When all nominations have been made, I will close the nominations. If only one nomination is made, we will, the position is elected by unanimous consent. If there are other nominations, we will have time to sort of discuss as a board and or hear from the people that nominate. You can nominate yourself and other people can nominate you. And so with that, I will open the floor for nominations for the chair position.
If so willing, I'd love to.
Thank you
Anyone
so
else?
much.
Yeah, I think the question is, do any of you guys wanna do it again? Or you guys like Ryan or Brenda or David with an interest?
I will make note that I do believe our bylaws have that regular members can be nominated for chair position. Though the three of you, thank you so much for acting as regular members for this meeting. Just want to make that one.
I can't nominate myself.
You can't nominate yourself. As an alternate. Yeah,
Do I second Chris's nomination? Is that how we do that?
you can if you'd like.
Yeah.
One more year.
All right.
Any
Okay,
other-
somebody else to come forward.
Okay, thank you. It seems like there aren't any other nominations for chair, so Chris, you are hereby appointed by unanimous consent. And we'll do the same thing for the vice chair position. Any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like that. If so, would.
I'll second that.
roll.
Anyone else?
Any-
Can I get a second?
Oh, I seconded
Oh, great. Okay,
very quickly.
wonderful. Well then, welcome Marlene again, appointed as our vice chair for this coming year. Thank you. Great. Thank you both. And with that, our next item.
All right, next item is the park system plan update.
Happy to tee that up, Chris. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again, new members. So glad you're joined the park board. Chris, Marlene, thank you for your continued leadership. Always a pleasure to work with you guys and have a chance to meet in our meetings as we build the agendas together. I heard you say, Chris, and I will echo this, right? That it's not a huge role, but it is an additional responsibility. And you know, hearing you say, Chris, that you're interested in doing this another year, I'll put that out there, that the idea, the hope of chair and vice chair positions is there is a degree of turnover and sort of sharing that responsibility. So just something for you all to think about as we get through this year.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah,
If I can
please.
do it, anyone.
And there we go. Well, so our one, other than the chair and vice chair elections, one agenda item tonight is a big one. Lots of content, lots of materials, lots of discussion. I want to give a little bit of an introduction and then turn it over to multiple people. We're going to be sharing the presentation tonight between our park planning staff. Robin and Julie are here, but also joining us are our partners on this project from Design Workshop, Anna and Lu Yu. I'll have a chance to turn it over to them. But so thrilled to have been working with Design Workshop. Both Anna and Lu Yu have just been terrific team, professionals. The group at Design Workshop has been a great group to really collaborate throughout the development of this plan update. We do this every 6 years. Having the pleasure of done a number of these through my professional career, these are really important. This is important work. This is really important work with the community. This is important work for us to create a plan that isn't just something that sits on a shelf, but it tells a story. It sets a vision for what this community wants, how they want their park system to perform. And so I'm excited tonight to really see rolled up a lot of materials that represent a lot of work by the staff team. Robin, Julie, Asante certainly has had a big lift in this, as well as myself, but also your work. We've had several discussions over these last couple of months that have all sort of informed, and hopefully as you see the materials tonight, you'll see how our conversations around the community survey in the fall, around athletic fields we had a couple of months ago, around vision and our joint meeting with the environmental board. Hopefully you see all of that really informing the materials tonight, as well as really some very extensive community engagement. This will be our final discussion before creating the draft plan. That draft plan would then go out to the community for public comment before it comes back to you all for adoption. So this isn't a final discussion, but really hopefully sets the stage for giving you sort of a final voice to really help us inform and help Anna and Lou you in sort of finalizing this document. So that's our goal tonight. You want to go to the next slide, Robin? I'll just highlight really quick before turning it over to Anna. So we're going to cover sort of 5 topics tonight. The first 4 are going to be covered by our design workshop team. There's going to be time for questions along the way. We'll have some pauses and breaks to really open up for a discussion with all of you. But tonight you're going to get a sort of a draft, a framework, if you will, of the chapters and how we want to lay out the narrative of the plan and the story. Anna will dive pretty deep, a little deeper into some analysis around some of the benchmarking work we've done. I know that's been an interest by you all as Park Board. A really very interesting look at our community through equity mapping and how that's really informing our prioritization and how and when we might want to prioritize projects. Next, we'll talk through a little deeper the concept of creeks to peaks as really the pillar, the theme, the vision for the park system. And then lastly, turn it over to Robin and Julie for a really, hopefully, an engaging conversation around draft projects, but also criteria for how we want to evaluate those. And then you'll see in the discussion tonight, as we sort of ran those through the criteria for the first time, we're not bringing those as a final document or a final recommendation. We really want it to be something that you feel like you can give feedback not only on the criteria and the projects, but even just sort of that first look at, boy, how does the near-term bucket, the mid-term bucket, the long-term bucket feel and look, and are there projects you might want to consider moving up and down? So really look forward to the discussion tonight. Thank you all for all your work these last couple of months. Really feel like we're headed towards a really compelling plan and vision. So with that, Anna, Luyu, welcome. So glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having us. It's your system is such an amazing one, and your community is so great that it's really been our pleasure in the work that we do all across the country to be able to spend time with the staff here, as well as in investigating all your park properties, your recreation opportunities, your open spaces, and what people are looking for. So I'm going to walk through a few of these things. Actually, do you mind going back to the last slide for just a moment? I wanted to highlight tonight, we are not going to do a deep dive into all the analysis that we've done for this plan. We're just going to highlight a few things of the benchmarking and equity that are an update to the work we had presented earlier. So just wanted to highlight that for you. We're also not going to go walk through some of the things we've done before around the plan strategies and goals and other vision objectives, but we'll focus primarily on a concept of creeks to peaks to communicate that larger view for the park system that will become part of that plan. And then at the end, we'll talk through how are we prioritizing projects within this plan, moves forward for capital improvements as priorities and how things are identified. So that's what we'll cover in this. And I just wanted to give that preface because we can't go through it all. You're going to be seeing a lot of things in the draft plan, and you've seen quite a few things prior to this that we've been sharing as updates. We're just kind of filling you in on some last gaps in it before we move into the draft plan. So with that, on the next slide, here to that, I want to give you a sense of what's coming with the draft plan. So first up, like most plans should have, an executive summary that's really written for the public that may not have as much time or understand some of the technical things that might be behind some analysis, but it excites them with an executive summary that brings all the pieces together and tells them about the entire contents of the plan and in a very brief way. Next up, we'll talk about what's in the introduction. Chapter 2 is the evaluation and how we've analyze your system, what the findings are from public engagement. And then chapter 3 is really the heart of the plan. That's all those recommendations of what should be for the future. It's where we're describing the vision, the strategies, and so on that really and help people anticipate what to expect in this planning horizon. And then chapter 4 is about implementation. It's the how-to and what to focus on that your board will be focused on, as well as the staff, and partnering with others in the city to make this a reality. Okay, and get next. So I'm going to just give a little bit more detail about what's in these chapters. Chapter 1, these are some of the things that will include to introduce people, includes describing your community and what it contains and the history of how your parks have evolved over time. Definitely reference the many plans and studies that have been developed previously that interact with this plan, building off of the good work that was done before. And then describing some of the different opportunities and challenges that the community faces when it comes to parks and recreation. And chapter 2 describes 2 different components. The community vision, that comes from a whole variety of ways that the public has been engaged, as well as stakeholders, from focus groups to surveys to the latest round of engagement with a public meeting and outreach with the online mapping. All over the last year of efforts to engage community members, staff, and city leadership as well. So that will be a summary of the methods that were used and the findings of what we learned from that tell us about values and interests. The next part is a system analysis, and that is where 2 components we're going to be talking about tonight, the benchmarking and the equity prioritization lives, as well as some other things that inform the recommendations from this plan. Recreation trends, understanding what is popular, what are people doing most, what has changed over time. A watershed analysis, I think we did a deep dive on that in a previous meeting, and looking at the trails and parks and understanding access and where there are gaps. And conditions, looking at how the properties are maintained, what they have within them, really looking into that inventory of what you have and what its quality is. So that's this chapters 1 and 2. Let's go to the next slide and talk about chapter 3. So this is the one I'm talking about that I know you all will want to spend some time reading over the vision that's expressed, the concept, creeks to peaks, and the values, goals, and strategies. Those really will be that guide to the future of what you're looking to achieve with those goals, as well as some approaches you might take. Now, those will be a little bit more flexible. You'll have a variety of options and suggestions of how to get to those goals with those strategies, but they are built off of things we've heard from the community, as well as best practices throughout the country and within systems like yours. And then chapter 4, the how will we do this, talks about the prioritization for the capital improvement projects, partnerships that are really essential to this, operations, and funding strategies. So that is the outline of what you'll find within that plan when you get the draft to review. Go to the next slide. So I mentioned I was going to do a little bit of deep dive into some of the analysis that will be in chapter 2, both the benchmarking and the equity analysis, and wanted to share with you this update of this composite of looking at Issaquah compared to 3 other comparable systems for parks and recreation. And these communities were selected. You're probably wondering, how did we get to these 3 out of all the ones that you could possibly pick from? A number of factors. 1, similar population and its density and characteristics, similar geographic characteristics like being bound by mountains and water bodies, and as well as some of these other things you can see here, like the land area and the number they have, because you want to pick some benchmarks where you can kind of compare and say, these are sort of competitors or places that we aspire to be similar to. You don't want to pick just the bottom of the barrel type of communities who are barely getting by with their park system. So these were selected for comparison for those reasons, and how Issaquah ranks compared to that or stacks up is that you can see number of parks for one thing, and then the acreage. So number of parks and open spaces just above that box in the green. You can see you're kind of right there in the middle of number of parks, number of open spaces. But that open space is really significant. And so you get to this total parks and open space acreage is fairly high compared to these other communities. A big component of that is the open space. You can see in the second green box below. So that is definitely contributing greatly to that acreage comparison point. And this is a pretty common way to compare systems and see, do you have enough, and do you have enough for your population? So Issaquah certainly is up there in total land that could be used for parks and open space and also as a percentage of your total land area, which that really does align with your community values. The survey results from the community showed that people didn't think you had too much parks and open space. They really appreciated the natural values, and many said that it was the reason they chose Issaquah, and what they most value about what you all provide is those outdoor spaces and the connection to nature that's possible, as well as the community gathering spaces and health. So we can go to the next slide. So we just wanted to also place this within a national ranking from National Parks and Recreation benchmarking. And so that this is looking at communities that are between a population of 20 to 50,000 people, and how those national brackets fall. And so Issaquah, as well as the other communities we chose, are in that upper percentile of communities for the acreage per resident, as well as the number of residents per park. So you can see where Issaquah stacks with that. We also in the benchmarking compared then the individual amenities within the parks. And there are some things that you're lower than other communities with, like sports courts. And there are some things that you're doing quite well with, like single-use athletic fields. So this helps us just also use one more way of looking at how do you, in addition to the community values from the survey, the recreation trends we're looking at, and as well as understanding what's in your system right now. This is just one other way to help evaluate what should be prioritized.
Anna, can I ask a question? Okay, Chris.
Yeah, Anna, we've got a question in the room.
Okay, sounds good.
When we are talking about the acres of parkland per resident, are we including the open space in that
Yes,
number?
good
Yeah.
question. Yeah,
I think
this does include it.
behind this slide. I know we talked about like how great we are when we add open space, but it looks like our parks specifically were a little bit below benchmark.
Yeah, we can go back to that slide. Yeah, let's go back to that slide. Yes, we picked up on that as well, that is a big component of it is the amount of natural lands. You can see these other communities also included their open space and in these totals. And that also that national benchmark, we understand that also includes parks and open space.
You can see it in that total number of parks, like that's them in the middle. That's not what I'm looking at.
Well, you're right. Something we've certainly talked about. Yeah, our ratio of community park, neighborhood park space, active park space to open space is that's pretty low as a benchmark. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we heard that because I think we do a great job in open space, but it can cover up where the opportunity is.
Yeah, the usable.
Good question, if I could just ask. All of this area and this count includes Lake Spam State Park?
No. This is only.
It's just city owned.
This is just the city's managed and owned lands. So it does not include the surrounding municipalities or those by other organizations. I mean, certainly if you look at all of the great, especially natural areas that surround this community, you have an abundance.
Yeah, Anna, correct me if I'm wrong. The only place that's different is the percentage of land used as park space. I believe that 27% reflects state park as well as some other county park land in the city. I think to get to that 27% ratio, I can confirm that. I think that would include the state park.
Lou's nodding her head yes. She was deep in these numbers and math.
Thanks, Lou.
Okay. Yeah, good clarification and diving into this is great.
Yeah, just one last question. Did we ever look at the money dimension of this. So what is the allocated budget for the Parks Department for each one of these?
Sort of how is both operating budget and capital budget? Again, the benchmarking is gonna go a little deeper, right, Anna?
Yeah, Lou, you might speak to this of what we got into for that. It is sometimes hard to get apples to apples comparison for those facts. They all operate a little bit differently in how they budget and where their funds come from. That can make it a bit challenging to compare some of these, especially when things come from, some mix of general fund and then other sources. But I think we looked at some numbers as best we could collect them from these other communities.
It's a great question, David. Yeah.
I'm just hoping
Good call.
to go
Good
to the
call.
city council and be like, look at these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we compare in terms of investment? Investment rate? Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Yep. This is intended to be a bit of a summary for this meeting today. There'll be more in the plan that helps describe this, as well as kind of calls out what's important to note about this benchmarking. It absolutely shouldn't be the only thing that indicates the recommendations of the direction you should go in, but it is one of those factors that can help inform where are you at today and where do you want to be in the future that keeps you up with what other communities offer. Okay. I'm going to transition then into talking about the equity mapping. We're not starting off with the mapping. I'm giving kind of the background of what goes into this mapping. But the purpose of this is to increasingly communities are wanting to prioritize equity and thinking about who are the parks and recreation offerings serving most and ensuring that it is recognizing that lower income, minority populations, people experiencing disabilities, and many other factors are important in understanding where you might want to look at how you've distributed or created access for parks and recreation, and if there should be some adjustments for greater equity in the community. So you'll see in this table, and this assessment was done looking at the different neighborhoods on the left-hand column here, and noting in the larger brackets here, the larger colored blocks, those that have a larger percentage of minority status or different social economic factors. So this brought in a whole variety of indicators that are from a number of sources that help us understand where the different neighborhoods lie within these different categories. So everything from environmental health, you can see here, like air pollution indicators and transportation infrastructure's availability in those communities, to looking at pre-existing chronic disease burden of the populations that are within that area. And then there's a composite score on the very right. And so we see with this that Central Issaquah has more of these variables than others. And so that's why it has that larger bar next to it. And on the next map, you'll kind of see how this lays out, but wanted to share this with you of all the factors that go into creating this composite map. And we do this work throughout the country, and the communities that are really innovating and how they prioritize are working this in as one more factor that helps them identify where to address and direct investments and actions within their community. So on our next slide, then you can see some of this laid out of the map in the background is representing those colors here of what are the highest equity priority areas like Central Issaquah. And then the orange and yellow are different levels of equity priority. So we overlaid then on top of that to get a better sense, how does that relate to the population density, tree canopy, the watershed analysis we had completed earlier to understand gaps, and looking at both parks and trails. So these overlays just help us understand as well of how are those factors playing a role in considering are the right priority areas identified, and are there some needs within those areas. So again, one more tool that as we talk about Chapter 4 and the prioritization, this aspect of evaluating the different neighborhoods of Issaquah are laid out here. Okay, So we thought we'd just pause there and see if there's any questions or discussion around those items before we move into talking about creeks to peaks.
We had some questions about benchmarking, but any questions about sort of the equity mapping or analysis or any of the sort of chapter outline items that are going into those?
I've got not so much a question, but a follow-on comment. Anna, maybe you could pick up on this too. It's not a coincidence that Central Issaquah sort of has that equity map piece because that's where the least number of residents live. That's mostly right now where the retail office space is, right? Not coincidentally, the Central Issaquah plan has sort of been the vision. That's where density is sort of intended to go. That's where we may in the next 20 years be seeing the most residential growth as multi-use comes in. And I think this map really helps to confirm that, hey, we should be really wise and smart that as that converts to residential, we need to be thinking of public spaces, connectivity, trails, how we unify that area that really hasn't had residential. But as residential comes, how do we unify that area to the rest of town?
Yeah, I think that's where it was useful to overlay things like tree canopy and see it is fairly sparse in that area compared to others. Like the others that are not developed in the same way. And so thinking about where are those places that people can easily get to a place close to home, especially with new homes coming in, that you're thoughtful about that redevelopment of Central Issaquah and what that means for those outdoor spaces. But I would just also highlight those that were had other characteristics that made us think that they should be the next level down of prioritization are also really important to this. And you can see those number of factors that contribute to them also to be important to be looking at through this equity lens. Great, thanks for keying that up.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think then we can move into describing this exciting concept that is encompassing for the entire plan. It's described as creeks to peaks. And Luyu's been working through all the graphics and maps and doing a deep dive to help storytell with communicating through visuals. So I'm going to turn it over to her to walk through this exciting concept.
Thank you, Anna. And it's very nice to meet all of you virtually. So for this concept in the 2018 Park Strategic Plan, Green Necklace only focuses on Central Issaquah. And during our preliminary assessment period, what we get as a feedback from the Trails and Open Space Focus Group are that the concept should not be just limited to Central Issaquah. It should be citywide and connecting to the surrounding public lands as well. So they're also kind of looking for more clarity of this concept, and it's less about the specific trail alignment at the moment. It's more about defining the experiences and elements that would make this concept a reality. So building on top of that, we come up with an upgrade of this Green Necklace concept is named Creeks to Peaks. So expand the concept to a citywide scale and trying to emphasize pedestrian experience, walkability, connectivity, and the quality of life of people that's living there. And I think that it's also about building a healthy and resilient system and fostering social connections from all of this. So it represents like kind of an energized network of parks and trails connecting from the valley floor to the surrounding forest hills, and hence the name Creeks to Peaks. And it's more about creating the pathways for the community to connect, recreate, reflect, and traverse this amazing landscape. So the key components that make up this is kind of the natural fabric, park system, and the community. I think that's what makes Issaquah different. And these components will be further broken down in the following slides. And if you can go to the next slide. So the first one is about natural connections And it is mapped here highlighting the tree canopy, the creeks, the key species. And it sets up the context for Issaquah's park system landscape and how key wildlife species also depends on these connections as their natural habitat from creeks to peaks. And it's also the natural environment that people living here really cherish, stores, and really enjoys. And the next part is about the human connections. And if you can go to the next slide, and that includes social spaces, active recreation spaces. So Issaquah already have great parks, public art gathering spaces that you all enjoy, and supporting activities like community concert, farmers market that have already been really successful as well. But those could use some more enhancement and optimization, as well as some active fields and courts in the community parks could also use that. So in addition to the existing ones, there could be more potential for the city to partner with partners like elementary school to use their fields and courts during the time. And that is what's been shown on the map as well. So what's connecting all of the social spaces and the park system are the trails. And those are the connectors that gets the social and active recreation spaces, get people to those social and active recreation spaces, as well as about improving connections through the trails. So this concept is about improving connections. And then, so to break this down into a hierarchy that gives this more clarity, it's about focusing on the regional trails that gets you to the mountains, while the local connections gets you to different areas of the park spaces. So in the online mapping exercise, we gather feedback on the connections, as well as other improvements that are needed in the social spaces and the natural spaces. So that helps us understand if there's any community support or for certain things, or if anything is missing from this concept. To illustrate this concept furthermore, we will be showing 3 snapshots for the future of the system at the creeks area, hillsides, and the peaks. And those will remain fairly conceptual and mainly used as a visual representation of what would happen. But we are also outlining concrete steps in strategies and capital improvement programs for implementation of this concept. So in the second part of this presentation, Robin will talk about the CIBs, the criteria that goes into that, and the prioritization of those things. So that can conclude the concept.
Yeah, Lou, thank you so much for that overview. I'm going to tee up this slide and really open it up for discussion. And as Lou, you highlighted, this has been I think a conversation and a really fun collaboration with the design workshop team to, again, understand green necklace has been it's been something that's been thought of here in Issaquah. It did sort of end up getting constrained to just central Issaquah, and so much of the community feedback was really saying, hey, we want a vision or a brand that speaks to the entirety of the park system. And so that's really what we're sort of conceptualizing with this and proposing to all of you. What this slide represents is 2 drafts of a vision statement, and would love to read these to you. Open it up to all of you to just give your thoughts and initial feedback on Creeks to Peaks as really a way to brand the system, but then also if you feel like one of these 2 sort of resonates over the other, but would love sort of your feedback. But again, the pillar of this plan is to really present Issaquah's Creeks to Peaks park system. Draft concept statement number 1 is this is a diverse system of parks, trails, and open spaces that unifies the Issaquah community from the creeks along the valley floor through wooded hillsides to the peaks of the Issaquah Alps. So really think of it at creeks. Creeks is meant to reflect the valley floor. Peaks is really meant to reflect the hillsides that surround us that are so important. Concept 2, similar, but with a few little riffs. A diverse park system of parks, trails, and open spaces winding along our valley floor from our creeks through wooded hillsides and neighborhoods, all the way to the peaks of the Issaquah Alps, fostering connections between people and the places they cherish. So with that, just in general, what's your take on Creeks to Peaks as a replacement of Green Necklace, and something we can build our system around, and any thoughts on these statements or comments?
Yeah, dive in a little bit. Just a couple of things, just for answering that question. On the, this is very, maybe left or right brain, but on your equity mapping slide, you have north going up, and the rest of your slide, you have north going bottom left. And it's just from a purely looking at one slide to the next, trying to understand where we're going here, it was a little confusing, just, or maybe next time. But I think I've been, like we talked about at the beginning, is I'm a little over a year here. And so when I kind of sat in on the first 12 months of meetings and heard the concept of the green necklace, I had a lot of like, I'm not sure I understand exactly what we're talking about. I can visualize what that means just from a logical standpoint. When you say creeks to peaks to me, that's like very straightforward to me of what we're trying to accomplish here. Is like, we have the creeks, we have the peaks, we're trying to connect it and make it open to everybody. So just from like, even just, you know, if that's the direction of moving away from Green Necklace to Creeks to Peaks, it's very logical.
Does it feel Issaquah? It feels more Issaquah than Green Necklace could be anywhere.
I think so. I mean, I'm not sure I feel like it feels more Issaquah per se, other than it feels like I understand what we're trying to do. So maybe that's the feedback.
Very helpful.
Do you guys play around with creeks to peaks or peaks to creeks? Do you remember?
We did.
You want to hear?
Yeah, I kind of want to hear how we landed.
We went back and forth, but we did a little bit of a Google search just to double check and make sure anyone else wasn't using it. But Peaks to Creeks was used by a couple other trail systems and some ski resorts. So
It makes
Rather
sense
one
to
day.
start at the peak and then the water rolls down.
We got this.
Right, yeah.
So hydrologically, yes, but we also thought, yeah, our system and how our system serves people and animals and everything. And we've talked about this, right? Our system starts in the city and projects out past our borders. And so Creeks to Peak felt like that was, valley to inside the city to outside. So that was
I was just curious. I was
yeah,
like,
no, it's a great question. We wrestled with
We did, we went back and forth and yeah. It was one of those aha moments.
So I guess a simple question. So who's this concept statement for? Who's the audience? Is it the city of Issaquah, or is it just the city council, or?
Great question. I think it's all of the above. I mean, I think it's meant to be the park system's brand, right? So it's how do we reflect to the community? How do we, is this something that feels like it resonates enough with the community that we even go so far as create a, iconography and sort of our this is our brand. When you are a trail system, when you see that stamp, you're part of the Creeks to Peak system. So it could go as big as we want it to be.
Yeah, so my thought was, to the initial point of these two statements, I would say to me, especially as an outsider, the second one appeals more to me. Now, personally, it's because a big thing for me is about community engagement and connection and that sort of stuff like that. So specifically the last part of that sentence of the fostering connections and the places they cherish is what draws me in, and it gives me the reason why, what the purpose of all this is more clearly than I think the first one does. While it does say that in like the uniting people, I think the second part, by specifying that part, is what gives it a real reason why and the real point of it. Similarly, I think the Creeks to Peaks discussion, I agree with it being Creeks first again, because I think, like I said, it's the community bringing you out and connecting you together, and like it starts here in the town. I think that's how I read it as well when I saw it in that order. So
Really helpful.
for me, I'd say that the second
Yeah.
more appealing.
I agree. And as a former language arts teacher, the
Yeah.
top one starts out saying a diverse system of parks, trails, and open spaces. And the second one says a diverse park system of parks. That drives me
Oh.
crazy. So if we could have that, Matt, that top sentence, that first part.
Drop part, yeah.
The bottom part is actually speaking to the people as well, not just the, what it is, it becomes more personal.
Helpful. But you're right. We can strike the first part. Thank you.
I think whichever one you go with, I like that neighborhoods is in that second one. So if you do need to go with like a less romantic, right, depending on where you end up on one, like I still think there are pieces of the second one you'd want to include.
Yeah.
Right, so I like the second one too. It is a little long, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think we could wordsmith it a little bit shorter, but I do like the idea of community, and I really think neighborhoods should be in there because sometimes we forget about our neighborhood parks and, you know.
Okay.
It's a system that serves people.
Yeah.
I really heard that loud and clear. Thank you. That's great. Mr. Roberto?
Yeah, I think, some people may not even be familiar, but the green necklace concept really was built around Issaquah Creek through the center of town. And so it was one strand, one curved alignment. I think this captures the whole city. So for that reason, I like it. I think you go with either of these two. The second one is a little fun and romantic, I guess. It's warmer. Either one, I think, gives the city the flexibility to, work within this and grab a lot of different projects and efforts.
And that is the vision statement. Yeah. It's helpful. Yeah, we've actually, we've been noodling on this. We've had a chance to talk to several community voices, shared this with the mayor and others, just to say, hey, what do you think? How's it feel? A lot of entirely positive feedback. Interestingly enough, one of our conversations, I don't think Ken will mind, Ken Koenigsmark, if you're familiar with that name, actually served on the original Central Issaquah Task Force. So when the Central Issaquah plan was sort of starting, that group of residents sort of came up with the idea of the green necklace. And Ken really appreciated this because he felt like the initial intent of the green necklace was to be system-wide. As it morphed into the Central Issaquah plan, it almost created a more restrictive definition that he really felt like something like this gets back to the origin, if you will, of feeling more system-wide. So that felt very encouraging and very supportive in terms of, okay, if this feels like we're not saying goodbye to the green necklace, we're almost going back to the original intent. So it's all really helpful.
Can I ask one more question?
Please.
Because the math's upside down and I'm all. Where's that potential new park? That's on the 3 slides earlier.
Oh, I believe that's the West Highlands Park.
Concept.
Yeah. So Issaquah Highlands, you'll sort of hear this a little bit in the project description, but if you're familiar with Issaquah Highlands, yeah, west of Highlands Drive, that was all planned as office. That plan has changed in the last 12 years. There's a lot more residential on that side. There were never parks planned on that side, and so we are proposing a new neighborhood park on the west side of Highlands Drive. We've actually identified a parcel that could be and the city owns it. Fantastic neighborhood park and a great potential for a trail connection down to the Issaquah Preston Trail. So again, not only a dot, if you will, as a neighborhood park, but also a really good connector from the Highlands down to the valley. So
It would remain a predominantly wooded neighborhood park.
Yeah.
Bring some diversity to the system.
I really like
Just,
Creek to Peaks. I mean, I just think it's very distinct and I don't know, the whole green necklace, I I just didn't get that as much, you know, but I just think there's a lot in that name too. I don't know, I like it.
Really, really helpful. Thank you. Anna Luyu, again, thanks for presenting it. I think, again, as you see, you know, you'll see the draft document. This really becomes a pillar, at least of how we're going to describe the vision as we get into specific projects. So thank you very, very much. And speaking of specific projects, so,
Yeah.
Anna, please, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say to that comment about liking the name, I'm kind of reflecting on how it's very distinctly yours. You know, it really does reflect your place, and it does kind of unite. It kind of says we're all within this together, for that whole range. And so that was the kind of that intent of this you have a spectrum, and the really the three dimensions that this mapping provides us to be able to communicate of how the topography shapes things is so important in communicating, given the community values. And I'm excited for us communicating what we heard from survey results, what we heard from deep dive conversations with focus groups, really that reflection of people's values and what they hold dear in what they hope the system would be and what they love about it now. And that's what I think this name gives us a chance to really align with what is uniquely yours and the abundance that you have that people so want to preserve and enhance.
Well said. Thank you, thank you. Robin, Julie?
All right, next steps. So what? Yeah. What?
Can I ask one question? Are you zoomed in on your slides?
As far as I know, I am.
Can you
Okay,
zoom
let's start.
out one?
It's kind of narrow.
Yeah.
We did that.
So you
I'm
can-
not super familiar with.
If you unshare and then share it again. Sorry, thanks everyone. Running on a little bit of a different system than we normally do.
Yes, we came early tonight to see the IT department. We had the big TV.
There we go,
fell
there we go,
off
okay.
the- fell
Wonder
off
why
the
that
wall.
flipped
There was
Yeah.
a very quick jerry-rigging. check. So hats off to our IT team. Tim
Yeah.
Schaefer, shout out.
Yes, thank you, Tim.
So one of the main components, or a larger component of the plan, is what we've been working on the past 2 months, and that's to develop a capital improvement program, which Julie's going to explain about our near, mid, and long-term projects. But in order to get there, we had to develop some criteria that we could weigh the projects against one another. So what we looked at were our focus group feedback from our survey, the 2018 park plan strategic projects, and I believe there were about 40 projects in that, a little more than that. Our current 6-year CIP list, again, the community survey feedback and our interactive map feedback. And throughout that, we developed our list of criteria. Let's see if it can go now. There we go. So through that process, we developed a prioritization method that we could work through and take every single project through this list of criteria. We wanted to make sure that we were still resonating back in with our previous work that we've done on the plan. If you remember, I think it was back in October, we were looking at goals and policies, which we have 8 of those. So, and for the new members, our main goals were parks for today and future generations, a balanced park system. We're looking at connectivity, again, creeks to peaks. A lot of that was a connectivity piece. Planning and design considerations as we're looking at projects and going through the permitting and planning process. Environmental protection was a large component that came out of the survey. Maintenance and stewardship, partnerships, and implementation. And again, checking back in, we just developed our draft core values of vibrancy, balance, connectivity, and resiliency. And I just want to add in that arts and culture is definitely a part of vibrancy, along with placemaking, social interactions, and amenities. Balance is making sure we have a balance between our park system, our trails, our amenities, and the open space. Connectivity, obviously, making sure our trails are connected to our parks are connected to our neighborhoods, and we're connected to each other. And then resiliency really is our stewardship piece of it, our environmental piece, to make sure we have conservation, protection, and preservation integrated in with the plan. Now, we started thinking a lot about, as we run through the process of developing a park or a trail, there's a lot of capabilities and feasibilities, and I say during the process that we have to think of, and I know just being on both sides of permitting and designing, some projects are more complicated than other projects. Some appear easy just looking at it, but when you dig into the details and knowing that we're really land constrained, we have a lot of creeks, we have a lot of buffers, we're trying again to balance those, that some simple projects just become a little more complicated because of that. So we really wanted to factor that into the criteria also. So we came up with 8 draft criteria that we took every project through. The main topics were improvement in performance of park system. Where does a project really provide a varied or needed amenity that diversifies recreation elements within the system and provide a closure in the gap area, again, and alluded to the, or talked about more about the equity mapping and looking at our gaps there, our gaps in connectivity, our gaps in the parks. So that's factored in. And how to maximize the park potential for multi-use. You know, as Jeff keeps saying, and as we keep realizing, we're very, very land constrained, especially on the Valley Floor. So we have to make sure that whatever we do really offers as many and maximizes as many amenities as we can in one space. We have a diversity and equity. Does a project increase equity and access relative to the equity indicator map that Anna showed, and enhance disadvantaged areas of the community? So we want to make sure that within that balance, we're balancing the location of the parks and the amenities to make sure everybody has equal access to that. Balance of vibrancy and connectivity, again, going back to our draft core values. Health and safety urgency or immediacy. That really deals with, does a project really require immediate improvements? You know, was there a landslide near the park, or is there a safety issue that we have to address right away? Is there something going on interdepartmental that we have to address with, say, Public Works? Implementation feasibility. Was a project identified in the 2018 plan and can be easily permitted, attained, or accomplished? I know easy is kind of in quotes lately, but how feasible is the project from a funding, from an implementation side? And can we really accomplish it? You know, we have some big visions, but you need big visions, you know, in order to make a system as great as the one we have, or even better. Operational maintenance and longevity. Is the cost benefit of the project in alignment with funding and operational capabilities? That's one of my personal pet peeves, is if we design something that we can't maintain, is that park successful? We want to make sure that it's successful on every level, but especially for our maintenance staff as well. And can it be effectively maintained, of course? Big one, resiliency, conservation, preservation, and sustainability. Again, going back to the survey and back to the feedback from the public and the community, they really want to maintain our open spaces, increase it if possible, and make sure that we're stewards of the amazing land that we have right now. And we definitely want to do the same and want to be able to integrate best practices in with any new design. Partnerships and collaboration. Does a project foster local, regional, state, or indigenous tribe partnerships and provide mutual benefits? Again, we've been discussing with the Issaquah School District partnerships, private-public partnerships, collaboration with Lake Sam and the state. So we're definitely trying to identify more partnerships where feasible, and we think it's just going to benefit the community as a whole. So with that, I am actually going to turn our, we have discussion. Did anyone want to add anything in or feel anything is critical when we're looking at prioritizing projects and developing that criteria?
I think we sent you a lot of material on the agenda. Thank you and thank you. But one of the items that we sent out was the project prioritization criteria and questions for review. So these were really the questions that the planning team sort of looked at all these projects from and sort of answered those questions of where do these land and how does that help us get to what's next and how we're going to actually implement all of these 46 different projects. And so the question to you all as a board is kind of, is there anything that feels like it's missing? Is there a lens that we're not seeing? Is there a blind spot that we maybe have from some of these, just from another perspective?
Lens is a great word, right? These are 8 lenses we're trying to run all these projects through. It's complex, and I know we're not trying to. It is just.
It is.
Trying to plan for and implement and invest in a park system. There's no simple way to do this, but hats off, Rob and Julie. I appreciate, and I would speak, hopefully you've seen these 8 questions didn't come out of thin air. They really came out of our goals and policies that you guys had such an important touch in. If you remember those values, not only our work with design workshop, but that joint meeting we had with the environmental board, if you remember that, and really that meeting resonating with this idea of both vibrancy, the active elements of our system, and resiliency. We need a plan that does both, that doesn't have those competing against one another. And so hopefully you're seeing so the formation of these criteria came out of all of that work.
Yeah, my initial perspective is it too complicated? But then I'm like, if I'm looking at the list, I can't find one that I want to cross off.
Right.
Right, so that's like I typically don't like to look at that many variables in a decision criteria, but I also don't know what I would kick out, so.
Really
I have
appreciate
the
that.
same thought.
Yeah.
You need 8 spider eyes to do this.
We have 4 right over there.
Really good team.
Do the 8 priorities have all equal weight? Or do they have, or is one more important than the other?
In terms of weighting the criteria.
Weighting the criteria.
I guess
When you run it through.
worth 5 points and longevity worth 3 points.
Yeah.
As an example.
Yeah, I would say health and safety, urgency, or immediacy kind of drop towards the bottom. And that's kind of a special case scenario too, that may come up later, but I'd say that would have the least amount of weight. I want to say our improvement in performance of the park system, which meets our elements goal A, B, and D. Making sure we have varied amenities, I think have the heaviest weight. So we want to make sure that, again, are we balanced in our amenities? Are we balancing our open space and natural areas with our active recreation, passive recreation? We're looking at economic benefits as well that came out of the goals and policies. Arts and culture is a big part of it, and we want to make sure we're integrating that now in with every park project to the maximum extent possible. Let's see, so diversity and equity, and I think going back to the core values, we want to make sure that those, if we're saying those are our core values, we're weighting those a little bit heavier now too. And again, it goes back to getting that vibrancy and resiliency and connectivity back in there.
I just second, third, kind of what's already been said, but if it's, as you're looking at these projects, if these are the lenses you're looking through things is from a resident and an individual, those are the lenses I want you looking at stuff for. See, there's an area where I'd say add to your takeaway there, really, it covers really what we're looking for.
Great.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
And then, of course, the next conversation of, okay, now here's a first run of these through these criteria. What do you want? Let's, again, as Julie goes over them, and you're welcome to sort of give feedback on near, mid, or long, but remember, this is a 6-year plan. So what really starts to resonate is near term, that really becomes our focused actions in these next 6 years. So.
Great, yeah, thank you.
So hopefully you have the chance to look in your packet. Just want to share that the near-term projects, like Jeff said, are that 1 to 6 year time frame. Mid-term would be 7 years to 15 years. And this is the projects getting started. They're all going to vary quite a bit of whether or not they're going to get knocked out in that time period or if they're going to extend for the duration and into the future. Those would be like long-term, which are 16 years and beyond. Also, in addition to those projects, there are existing continuous programs that support ongoing life cycle replacement programs. Those are in there. We're interested in keeping those going. And also there's like a really healthy bucket of amenities that can be considered really for each of these projects as the planning happens for each one. Especially in the public input process, those amenities were really what was shouted from the rooftops from the public. So we have a variety of new amenities added to that list compared to the 2018 plan. And so I'm just going to try to spin through what we'd like to do after I kind of spin through the near term. The projects have been shifted through the criteria. And so right now they're in these buckets of near, mid, long. And I'll spin through the near ones because like Jeff emphasized, those are the ones that we're going to see some action in potentially. But we would really love to know if you have what your priorities are. You know, maybe, you know, your top 1, 2, or 3, if you want to contribute that to the discussion afterwards. So I'm just going to run down the list. One is the Anthology Linear Park Improvements. So that is a city-owned sequence of park spaces within the Anthology development in the Newport neighborhood. They're really a blank slate right now. They're ready to go. Central Park Pad 2. This is the area of Central Park that currently has 2 underutilized baseball fields with drainage issues. So these amenities and the arrangement will be reconsidered as part of the project. Now in Confluence Park, Eck House restoration would get the Eck House structure up to snuff for community use, which it's currently not. And this would include involvement and coordination with other organizations. The project can include additional improvements like expanding the playground and other improvements to that kind of northeast corner of Confluence Park. Okay, we have the East Sunset Way trailhead improvements. That would take this amazing little in-town trailhead and improve it with more durable surfacing for parking and possibly restrooms, running water.
Woohoo! Move on to the top.
And additional wayfinding and storytelling signage to really bring that trail head city to the heart of the city. Fringe. Anyways, Harvey Manning Park Trail Development would develop a trail system in the recently acquired wooded Bergsma property. It would connect the lower, like Newport Way, the Transit Center, the new King County Big Tree Ridge Trailhead.
Really
Connect these lower connection points to the upper, like the developed portion of the existing Harvey Manning Park that has the playground, basketball court, parking, as well as the Taos neighborhood as a whole and connections to the regional park, Cougar Mountain. And we have picked back up coordination with King County on the beginnings of the development of that trail system and kind of how that would hash out between the 2 agencies as the trails would go between the 2 lands managed by the 2 agencies. We have the Hillside Park Loop Trail. This would provide a trail system through the large wooded Hillside Park. This area of Squawk neighborhood doesn't have many sidewalks, so this project would go a long way for connectivity in the neighborhood, including connecting to Old Town. The Mountains to Sound Greenway Trail is still on the docket to solidify a trail alignment for this regional bike trail to get it built through Issaquah to close the gap and connect to the existing portions of this regional trail and adjacent communities. This project is largely public works project, but Parks is involved in any way we can to get this big time vision closer to reality for big time connectivity and big time adventures. Pickering Barn park improvements involve activating kind of the blank slate between the barn, the adjacent roads and Pickering Trail. Precise amenities for this would be determined in the planning process. We have the Issaquah School District Sport Field Partnership in the near term, would involve getting all-season sport fields constructed on one of 3 potential city elementary school properties for joint public and school use. The concept has been developing along with school district staff, so there's some good momentum building for that partnership and kind of capacity building for the sports fields. Squaw Valley Park redevelopment would see improvement to connectivity, including safely accessing the park, since pedestrian access to that park is subpar currently. Also providing connectivity between like the 2 portions of the park, and also provide connectivity potentially to Squaw Mountain and even possibly further towards Tiger Mountain, and being kind of a link between those areas. And also possibly change up some of the amenities within it for consider. Okay, 3 more. Tibbetts Valley Park redevelopment is a long time coming. Planning had begun previously, so this would pick things back up. The park would be redeveloped in phases after the planning phase to meet the needs of the anticipated high-density Central Issaquah neighborhood and the larger community. Major considerations would be environmental around Tibbetts Creek and providing durable surfacing for a variety of play spaces, including sports fields. Veterans Memorial Park and Depot Park redevelopment is intended to continue the momentum that's being created now with the projects that are hopefully transitioning to construction soon at Pedestrian Park and the Senior Center around the Veterans Memorial, to really kind of round out and fill the gaps between the projects to kind of update the design of these public spaces and unite them. And so this would probably start with Depot Park and then be followed by a Veterans Memorial Field, so reactivating these spaces. The final one on the list here for near term is this mentioned previously, the West Issaquah Highlands Neighborhood Park, which, as mentioned, it would be a neighborhood park in that portion of the Highlands that is going to see a higher density housing. In this wooded area is near the Swedish medical facility, and it would be a wooded park with connections down to this Crescent Trail. I think with that, if we could open up to discussion to hear what you have to say and how you're feeling about project list.
Excellent overview, Julie. Well done. If I could just add something to the prior slide that talked about ongoing capital programs. Just as a reminder, you might recall as we were doing our 6-year CIP, those of you that were here a couple of years ago, that work we proposed, and it's in now the city budget, but just an important sort of drawing the differentiating those near term are really looking at projects and specific investments. These programs were really reflected as more of those ongoing. This is sort of, think of this as the taking care of what we got, and we really feel like this is ongoing work that, coupled with the near-term projects, become our near-term strategy. We want to keep these ongoing programs going: acquisition strategy, playground replacement, irrigation replacement, trail repairs. Think of those as also near-term strategies. So they really sort of create that healthy mix of capital programs and capital projects.
A quick, besides us as individuals on the park board voicing our opinions about how to rank some of these, what will be the formal process to rank these?
Yeah, really good question. In terms of once the draft or a document is done, or?
Yeah, who and how will these be ranked, or by whom and how? So
we've done most of this sort of internally through staff while looking at the current 6-year CIP that was adopted through City Council, looking at the 2018 park plan and those projects, how they came about. We did some engagement with the Park Board Ad Hoc Committee and had them sort of review and give their top 5-ish for these near-term projects, and reviewed the longer list of projects. It will go to all of you all, and then it will be included as part of the park draft plan. So there won't be necessarily, I guess, like specific project prioritization, moving things up and down for full community as its own entity, but it will be included in the full park plan. And this is 20-year vision. This isn't, actually 6-year CIP. This isn't budget. This is just sort of 20-year vision, helping us sort of hone in and get community input on where we want to sort of take some of these. And all of these came from community input already. Does that sort of help?
Then, yeah, the draft plan itself will again go out. We've developed quite a database of folks that have provided input. Everyone will be sort of invited to review this draft plan. How is it resonating? And then just to double down on what Hasanthi said, remember, this is a planning document. It's really, really important, but this isn't a budget document. We're not making budget decisions. We're trying to set a path and identify priorities that will inform those budget decisions over the next 6 years. Thanks for the question, Chris.
I don't see the pool in here that we talked about a couple times ago. Is that because it's already in flight, or like what's the story with the pool and then the community center?
Really, really good question on both of those. So as a park system plan document, this is really meant to be focused on our land pieces. Those facilities are certainly in and part of the facility capital planning and remain priorities, but this is not a parks and recreation system plan. It's really focusing on our outdoor infrastructure. So those remain priorities.
Can I just I think you tried to say this a couple different ways. I believe I'm understanding correctly, but just want to make sure I understand. So for example, like the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trail is a near-term project that you want to put manpower at to develop a plan, but the actual project is a 16+ year project. And I don't think I quite understand what I'm looking at.
No, great question. I'll take a try at this. Each one of these projects has a different length runway. So I don't, by saying that all of these are, some of these would get accomplished in the near term. There's others of these that are so complex, we want to get started on them. They might not be all the way through to completion, but we feel like they're an important enough priority to get them started. Right, so
Yeah,
it's
I think that's, yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, yeah.
Like the conversation is happening now, but the actual duration of the work that needs to be done is the 4-box bubble thing.
Yeah, and as Robin mentioned early on, is we're going to try and graphically show on the plan. It's like each of these have a different longevity. Not every project is created the same, unfortunately.
Did Anna want to add something, or are you good?
Yeah, this might have been clarified already, but you can kind of notice here that these will not be included in the plan, numbered priority 1 through 20 or whatever, intentionally, because they're also going to be based off of what opportunities come up. If you get a partner, if you get grant money, if you get just something, it just makes sense to move it forward faster. You want this plan to give you that flexibility to respond to opportunities in that way. Additionally, there will be concept plans that are developed for each of these projects, and which includes additional public engagement where people can influence what exactly goes into that site, where you talk to neighbors and you understand what their challenges or issues are with them. And so there is a lot of time within that 20-year duration with this work to work through more of the details in it. But the point of prioritizing is so that one, state requirements for these plans do want to see prioritization of what you're going to be focused on for clear projects, as well as for the purposes of transparency about what is a priority to your community move forward and what are some things that, they may not be as clear a focus of what the resources should be going towards.
Great points. I'm gonna, under the director's report, a little foreshadowing, I'm gonna highlight one thing we're putting into this plan is accomplishments from the 2018 plan. And I'll talk a little bit about it, but we'll share that and add that in the minutes. It's important to sort of look back, and I think Anna's, your points are so spot on, because you know the priorities of the 2018 plan really set a lot of important work, but you'll see in terms of what was accomplished, there was opportunity sort of embedded in what we're able to get completed. So great addition. Thanks, Anna.
Are there any other comments in regards to the priority project?
I'll make some comments. I was kind of waiting to see if the
Yeah.
comments before jumping in. For those of you who don't know me, I'm always team Tibbetts. So, just, you know, I'm excited to see it on this list. I would love us to challenge ourselves to say, what can we do to accelerate time on this project? Like, I don't love seeing the bubble or the box chart the way it's sitting. I think we need to challenge ourselves to do better than that. It's gonna sit right in smack dab in the middle of where we're talking about prioritizing from a DEI perspective. I would prefer to have fewer things on the list and make faster progress there personally.
I would
Appreciate
second
that
that.
feedback.
Second that, definitely.
I would third that, and I think we're gonna partner real well together, because, you know, I'm, in fact, driving over here, it was great to see that some of the fields were actually utilized, you know, being utilized.
I think it utilized a ton through the spring and summer.
Yeah.
Like that park is jamming spring and summer, and then it's quiet. You go up to the Highlands in the winter, kids are still all playing on it.
Yeah.
So you can solve that. And it doesn't need to take 10 years.
As staff, we echo that. We share it. It's time. It's past time. TVP needs a new vision. It needs a new, yeah, certainly appreciate that. There'll be a lot of community conversation. There's a lot of complicating factors with that. Really important community park that happens to be tucked in a high hydrology valley. So, yeah, the sooner we get working on it and really start trying to solve those, the better.
I just want to sit in planning for 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, we need to start making some moves.
Thank you. We would love that. We would love that. And that's where that funding, you know, implementation, right? As we prioritize our work, rate of spend, rate of investment. Thank you, David, for your benchmarking question. You're right. You know, how, as residents, how quickly do you want to invest? And what is the scale of that investment you want to make in your park system is going to be really, that will determine a lot of the rate we get done on these projects too. So really good. We agree. It's a critical community park that needs to perform better. Just absolutely needs to perform better.
I think, Chris, you brought up a really good point. If you were to call this down to a narrower list, what would you prioritize out of it?
Maybe looking at those near-term projects, are there like a top 3 and a top 5 that really, for you as community members, as you know, representatives from your neighborhoods and other community groups, things you've been hearing? Are there projects in there that feel like they deserve the extra star?
Definitely think Tibbetts.
You just make a list of
One,
Yeah, one project.
It's like a dot exercise. All 3 of your dots are going.
I think Central Park Pad 2 has a lot of demand and also is sort of a more, you know, a low hanging fruit project.
So currently underutilized as well. Needs better to perform better.
I have a question just as a newbie. When we talk about this kind of stuff, is being included in the just as a parent with this kid various challenges? Is that part of the?
That's a
Yeah,
question.
it's a great question, and it is. It's part of, you know, as any of these projects goes through permitting, all those questions of concurrency and transportation and parking are all key elements to the project. Yeah.
It's like central. Park. So many different things. It's small.
That was kind of my question around, gosh, I wrote it on my list, now I forgot. The park that's like really hard to get to because of traffic.
Block Valley.
Yeah.
Rock Valley, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I guess my question is, we're not gonna solve the traffic on Issaquah Hobart. So like, how much more can we?
Hobart Road going south for those that don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the last park as you're.
Right on our southern border. So it's a great question, Marlene, and one we as staff and as we talked to the community and saw needs to connect better connect to Squawk Mountain, better connect to Tiger Mountain. That park, I'm just going to speak hypothetically here. You're right. Its location, not being in a neighborhood, is kind of constrained to use as a predominant sports field or some of those other things. But it's extremely well positioned on the creek corridor to be potentially a trailhead, potentially an alternative way to get up and into Squawk Mountain and the Squawk Mountain State Park. What's called Squawk Valley Park North sits right it's right across the front street from Park Point. So if you can imagine a trail that would actually link West Tiger Mountain to Squawk Mountain, potential there, right? So we see that park could function more in different ways. So I get that's as Julie explained, the sort of the programmatic makeup of that park. It feels like it needs to be something different. It's a relatively isolated park, so would something like additional sports courts down there, would people, if there's again, increased desire for tennis and pickleball, is that something we want to consider? Well, but again, multiple different times a day. I mean, that it's not just, yes, a practice at 6:30 is probably not the best time to go, but there are other times throughout the week and day when it's not as constrained. And not saying that's what we're proposing, but is it a different mix of elements that makes sense? Community gardens. Community has clearly said they're interested in community garden space. Is there a potential for community garden down there? So that's again, it's a park that has had investment, but again, from this sort of, what's the role we're asking it to play in the system? Maybe it could serve a really important role, but it's a different role.
My other question was around, so you mentioned Eck House restoration as well as the veterans and depot. So I know we haven't started depot, but like, question, are those just like additions to what we've already done? Is it like the phase 2 of the stuff we've started? Is that what those are?
Exactly. Phase 2 is a good way to put it. Yep.
Another question. You have to go up to the last map image of the creeks peaks.
Mm-hmm.
There are these potential connections that look like 3 of them tie into Hillside Park, if I'm reading the map correctly. Is that what those are doing?
Is that Hillside Park?
In the
The orange.
Yeah, yeah.
So are
these
those
are
three
connecting.
connections anywhere in this?
They're not.
They're not. They haven't made the list
Specifically
yet.
called out in the list. No, this is sort of, so the vision for this Creeks to Peaks image is being able to sort of see all of the community parks and the neighborhood parks potentially connected. So this could like help get one of those to this list, but they're not specifically trails that we have identified as.
So they're probably not for the short term, near term,
They're not.
but they,
Long term, there's a Tibbetts Valley Park to Squawk Trail. So that's probably the line going between those 2 parks. I think there's also kind of Squawk going down to Old Town with one possible routing being via Hillside Park. I think that is in there also, but I think they're long term.
yeah, those are in the long term. I think those are, I don't want to put them in the near term. Because I think Tibbetts needs to be the top of the near term.
Mhm.
I don't want to take away from that, but I do think that connectivity is an important aspect, especially given, both the draft concept statements include that connection and bringing people together, uniting. So.
Really good and good catch. And you're right. You're looking at the entirety of the vision of the document. Again, we update it every 6 years. We're trying to cast a 20-year vision, and we're not going to wait 20 years to update it. We're going to update it in a shorter term, but we still try and keep that long view. And you're right. The very essence of Creeks to Peaks is this really, really bold, ambitious vision, I'll just say, but could be really amazing. There's not many cities around us in the Puget Sound area that literally every park could be connected. Again, it would be hard to do. It would take a long time, but it's possible with the park system that you all own as residents to think of connecting them all.
Jeff, this is a good reminder that we should, when we're talking about concept, we should continue to say 20-year concept, paint what that vision is, but
Yes.
recognize that this plan is one that you're updating every 6 years. Will likely every 6 years chip away a little bit more at accomplishing this vision.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So to that point, I think, and you guys know I always push on accelerate time, but I think this school collaboration might be a way to get some fields in the valley turfed faster, right? If, I don't want to take the pressure off Tibbetts because I want that done, but in a very short term, in the valley, some more turf for kids in the winter, I think is another, could be an easier, lower hanging fruit win. That would be another one that I would push up.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'd scored in the near term, both in terms of equity mapping and the sort of needs. Coincidentally, we had a great conversation with the Issaquah School District capital staff just yesterday. So again, those conversations are already underway. How can we make this real?
In the interest of time,
Really
I'm not
good.
great at doing this, but I am gonna sort of ask for maybe last thoughts on sort of near-term projects, or if there's anything that you all saw as you were reviewing in sort of midterm or long-term projects that you feel like you want to move up. Let us know. This is not the only time you have the opportunity to tell us this. Go home, think about it, send us some email, and this will also be included in the larger draft plan that you all will see in the next couple months as well. But, yeah. Where is Cora Park?
I'll take a stab at it. So if you're if you're at Veterans Memorial Field and you're by the ball field, by the infield, so that would be the northeast corner of the park. Cora Park is right across the east fork of Issaquah Creek, maybe a block and a half away. It was established as a life estate acquisition a number of years ago. We just received ownership. We're now maintaining it for the first time. So it's right in the middle of Old Town. Provides a really cool potential, almost expansion of Memorial Field into that neighborhood. Brings East Fork of Issaquah Creek a little closer into Old Town. So think of it, yeah. It's really, in terms of Old Town region, how to really make that parks within Old Town feel connected.
Could we try something where, again, this goes back to the product and all that, but what we have here is the backlog, right? And so would it be feasible to not right here, but maybe have an offline doc where we could all get like 10 stickers? And then you can vote for, of all these things, put your 10 stickers wherever you want, whether you want to put all 10 on Tibbetts or you want to spread them out. And then we have some sort of ranking with this group. More consideration, more thought goes into it as opposed to just, I want this one, I want that one. Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
How to do that, and yeah. Meet our obligations as Open Public Meetings Act, but we can figure that out.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah. Again, we really invite feedback. You'll see this in various forms. I think maybe at another ad hoc meeting as this gets finalized will be important as well. Robin, thanks for having this slide up. I'm just going to mention it really fast. I know time is short. Julie mentioned this. We also want to have, along with our capital programs, these capital projects, this list of amenities. It's very clearly identified as, hey, we heard this loud and clear from the community. These are important amenities that might not be projects by themselves, but as we're doing this sort of reimagination of our park system, these amenities really need to resonate and be priorities that we're trying to weave into these projects. So you heard Michael tonight, so glad he came, speaking, his advocacy for archery, how and where we might fold that in, much less, dog parks and, disc golf, just some of the other amenities that really resonated from not only the survey, but the online mapping feedback we got. So we feel that's another really important list to have and live in this document. Well, thank you all. Thank you. Robin, Julie, thank you so much for your all work. This represents a lot of work. Anna Lou, you as well. We feel like, not only the vision of this document, but sort of rubber meets the road. How does this really start to inform our capital planning moving forward? It's a document that bridges all of that. So thank you. With that, we're done. We have more work ahead. Lou, Anna, thank you for joining us. I know you're an hour ahead of us, so longer night for you guys.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Thanks for having us.
Pretty amazing distillation of information into all those graphics. That's awesome.
Just wait till you see the plan document. I'm telling you, it's coming.
Yeah,
Here's
it's
just a
coming
little
together.
snapshot.
It's gonna pop. Yeah. No, thank you both so much.
Excited for it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay. We'll move on to reports. Our youth representatives are not here.
They are not here, and they are wrapping up their youth advisory board year. They had an event yesterday, I believe, in Confluence Park, and then they have their last event, a hackathon, on June 1st. They're wrapping up at the end of school and taking their little hiatus for the summer.
High schoolers do.
Yeah.
Sorry to see them not here. As much as all this stuff that we do is pretty cool, that for me is one of the most inspiring moments to see them involved at that age. Okay, then your report.
Yeah, a couple. What's that?
Yeah, no, it's not. Everybody's, this is all good, but
We all have our place. I get it. No. Two items really fast. I hope, Robin, if you don't mind sharing, thank you. First, well, I'll do this one first. This is great. I mentioned it. I'm going to include this. We want to include this in the minutes. We want to send this all to you. This sort of keeping with this theme of the park system plan. Some is important context for you all. One of the pages will speak to, hey, we adopted a 2018 plan. What are the accomplishments that we got done? We'll have a little narrative that goes with it. It's hard to remember 2018. We had this, I like to refer to it as the COVID blip that happened between a pretty significant international global event that disrupted a lot of things. But in spite of that, this is really representation of 17 really, really big movements and actions that this city took that came right out of the goals and policies, right out of the projects that were adopted in that 2018 plan. So important for us to tell the story, things from, some really key acquisitions like Bergsma and sort of connecting our valley up into the mountains, another key one at Squawk Mountain, some really important work, some neighborhood park improvements at Blackberry, what we've done in park operations and maintenance. If you remember, that was a really important goal. Let's take care of what we got. And I think we've heard time and again that the level of service and the maintenance improvements that we've made these last number of years come directly out of a goal of the park plan. So please, when you get this, take a chance to look at that. We just think it's an important story to tell as we go from that plan to adopting another one, and really reminding all of us that these are documents. This is a document we don't want sitting on a shelf. This is going to inform capital planning for the next and operational investments the next 6 years. So look forward to sharing that. last item I have, we are embarking, speaking of pools and recreation programs, we just launched yesterday a recreation program survey. We really want to reach out to the community and ask, how is our array of recreation programs? How's our array of recreation facilities from the community center to the pool, to the senior center, to Pickering Barn and Farmers Market? It's sort of a, how are we doing? What's missing? What is a community? Are you interested in seeing more community events? Are you interested in seeing more, other programs, other types of programs, et cetera? These little information sheets are going to be showing up on social media and in our facilities. We're going to be pushing this out. We're happy to send you an email, so please send this out to your neighborhood spheres of influence. We really have some really good feedback, because this will, again, help inform us, our programming for years to come. And as a cadence, we probably want to, as I've worked with Brian and the recreation team, we probably want to every 3 years, have some type of recreation survey going out. Recreation programs it's not something you ever arrive at. It's a market-driven anomaly that we constantly need to be tweaking and adjusting. So thank you for helping us get the news out on this one.
Just give you a quick feedback on this.
Please.
Especially this one in particular, I think it really could have used a sixth option instead of like somewhat dissatisfied to highly satisfied to I don't interact with that program. Because I think you might skew your results with people that don't actually have kids in summer camp. Things like that is where do you slide it on your
Sort of
you're satisfied or
not
unsatisfied with
applicable.
something? I don't go to the senior center. I don't know how to answer that on your survey. So just a part.
Really good. Continue, fun, sir.
I think that brings it to, and I actually have 2 minutes. This doesn't usually happen, but one thing, I'll keep this to 1 minute. I crawled all over the websites and created this list. Rather than try and list them off and run out of time. There are so many things going on and you can't read it from there, but when you get it, take a look. It's pretty cool how many opportunities we have by all the different organizations from DIA and Trout Unlimited and Issaquah Historic Museums. And so give that list a look over and you'll probably find some things that you want to do. And it's high season. We're not even in concert season yet. And that's it for me. Any other business or announcements?
I just want to say thank you two again for accepting your nominations and continuing your roles.
And then I just have one item I always do. I feel like looking at dates for next meeting. So our next meeting is scheduled for June 24th. That likely will stay. But when we hit July, we actually are going to potentially need a different meeting than our late July meeting because of park plan. So we have some sort of document adoption that will be happening pretty soon, some draft documents coming out in the beginning of July, and an opportunity for park board to give their sort of final feedback and take action to move that planning document forward. So you'll be getting an email from me soon asking for potentially time during the week of July 15th. I need to work with the city clerk's office to find out a date in there that is okay to ask and use, but somewhere within that week, if we are able to make that meeting happen, we will likely cancel the later July meeting because we won't need a meeting in another 2 weeks. But that is the only other update that will be coming soon. And I wanted to tell you all now. I'm sure you all have summer vacations planned, and by all means, take your summer vacations. That's what excused absences are for. But just wanted to put that one out there now.
I don't know if we need to do anything, but I think for that June 24th, you're going to be gone and I'm going to be gone too.
Oh, yes, we do.
So practice run for some other people.
Oh. This actually basketball chair, June 24th, yes, both our chair and vice chair will not be in attendance. We can decide now as a board if somebody knows they're going to be able to be here and feels interested in accepting the duties of chair to run through the meeting. If anyone feels comfortable making that known now, that'd be great. If not, we can do it over email later. But
I have a little blank
Go for it.
agenda that I can share with, just to walk you through it. I used it the first couple of meetings and I don't anymore, but it helps you know what you're supposed to do.
And then we have our monthly meeting where we meet with you all to sort of build the agenda. So, if we get a name in the next week or two, and invite that person to come to that meeting too. So you're queued up and ready to go.
If needed, every day.
right, yeah. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Great. We'll be in touch and you'll sort of get a little thing that you can use to help you through it too. Yeah. Thank you. That's all.
Any
Great
other-
discussion tonight. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Thank you, new members.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
All
right, with that, the meeting is adjourned.
I know too. Fun. Got the odds of us.
I thought we were doing so good and then all of a sudden it was 8:48.
I know.
Yeah.